This is the Impressions Exchange Podcast. Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hi, I'm Denise Gustavson, Editorial Director for NAPCO Media and the guest host for the special Printing Impressions podcast series in celebration of Women's History Month, highlighting women in the printing industry. During this series, I'll have the opportunity to talk with women from all segments of the print industry about their experiences and their journey as a woman. So today, it's my pleasure to welcome Ashley Lorrince. She's the Director for Intercompany Scheduling and Client Delivery with Orora Visual. So Ashley, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Denise. So great to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you here. So as we're getting started, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your current company, and your current role there?
Currently, I have been with Orora Visual since May of 2016. I've taken on a couple different roles. My current role right now is to coordinate the work that we transfer between our own facilities. So we're located in New Jersey, Chicago, Dallas, and Orange County. So obviously across the multiple time zones, 4 different work styles. So it's a lot of coordination and a lot of just back and forth and making sure that everybody's on the same page so that we can deliver product in full, on time, the whole 9 yards.
Awesome. So that must be fun logistically, especially with the time zones.
Logistically, it makes for a very long day sometimes. And as you know, print has for us in the retail side of things, we have a seasonality aspect to it. So typically, right, we've already actually started quoting some holiday work, but our holiday season, about July or August through November, is very, very busy. So that presents the biggest part of my workload for sure, coordinating the work across those, because not any one facility could handle all of our holiday work because it's all in the same time.
Okay, I think that's just kind of crazy that you're now quoting for something that's 10 months away at this point?
Indeed. Yes. We're always several months away from the next holiday, but it is definitely crazy. I think last year with the supply chain challenges that every organization in the US basically had faced, we were not unique in that aspect. So I think that our customer base may have, learned a valuable lesson in that regard, and they're trying to get to it first, right? Any special products, special materials, special coatings, inks, stock, any of that kind of stuff, right? You definitely want to get your hands on fast.
Yeah, because if they get it, they know they have it, and then they don't have to worry.
Exactly. Yes.
Awesome. So how did you first get started in printing? Was it something that you had your eyes on when you were growing up that you wanted to be in this industry, or was it something else?
It was definitely something else. I didn't realize how big the print industry was or how much it impacted your everyday life. So I was in my second year of college at Case Western in Cleveland, Ohio, and I needed a job. So I went, one of my cheerleader friends had a part-time job at some print shop in the accounting office, and she was graduating. And so I took her position and basically trained at a small print shop. I think we were about $5 million a year. So a little bit smaller, obviously, than where I'm at now. And that owner gave me kind of the break that I needed and said, here, we're going to teach you how to do this. And he brought in an expert to help, a small business expert, a tax guy, and a finance guy. So my start in the print industry actually was for a small print company on the accounting side. And it started part-time for college. And then I stayed and never got out of printing since. So it's been 17 years now.
It sucked you in and you've never turned back.
Correct. Correct.
So you started in accounting. Now you're dealing with clients and that kind of stuff. So how did you get from where you started to where you are today?
I definitely, like I said, started in accounting. Then I kind of morphed into a little bit of operations. That was at a time in the early 2000s where a lot of printing companies, particularly in Ohio, right, were getting bought out by the next biggest printing company. So I was involved in mergers and acquisitions for 3 or 4 different print shops that just every year I felt like one just got acquired after the next. So ultimately I stayed in finance and accounting. Then I dabbled in scheduling. I think at one point I ran a litho press room and stayed with scheduling for that organization. And that's where I kind of tiptoed into operations. And I found that I really loved operations. And so when I moved to Texas, I was in operations for a print shop in Fort Worth. And then I moved to this one here in Dallas. And I have stayed in operations ever since. So I've started in accounting, went to customer service, went to operations, went to scheduling, press rooms, kit packing. Like I've kind of run the full gamut of manufacturing in this industry. So I think that really presents a unique perspective in where I'm at now, kind of trying to just coordinate the work and being able to have been on the West Coast and then here. And it's been a very unique journey.
Definitely. And how has all that experience helped you do your job today? I mean, it has to have had a big
Yes.
impact.
Yes. Today it helps me really with being able to understand. I think the biggest challenge coming from the Midwest to the South, and then even I had spent a year and a half on the West Coast with my current organization. And I think the biggest learning that I've taken away from the last 17 years is the ability to work with all the different cultures, because I think it's easily overlooked when you bring 4 organizations together to form Orora Visual. And we have to be respectful of the past and what they've done and how they've accomplished it and where they are, where they got to where they were. And then trying to kind of bring us all under that one umbrella has been really tricky. But I think that having those 17 years of being in the Midwest, on the West Coast, and then down South, right? The terminology is different. The culture is different. The work styles are different. The communication is different. Those are all hurdles that we've had to adapt to. And I think that I am able to provide that perspective when I'm coordinating the work across all of those different cultures and those different locations.
Awesome. Through this journey so far, you said you've been in the printing industry, 17 years, I think is what you
Yes,
mentioned.
ma'am. Mhm.
So who's helped you get to where you are today? Is there a specific person or persons or even organizations or things that have really helped you to grow?
At the very beginning, like I said, my first job in the print industry, the owner at that time, his name was Rick Schwartz. He basically took a girl from college and said, look, I think you're smart. I think you can do it. Let me bring somebody in to train you. And for the next several years, I trained one-on-one with my finance guy, and he checked my numbers first he was checking me daily, then he was checking me weekly. Then it was, okay, let's see your month-end numbers. And then quarterly until, I developed that independence and confidence in myself. But he was really the first one that I would say made me stick with printing and gave me that opportunity to say that I could actually do it. And I think that obviously starting on the finance side in any industry allows you to be able to see what you're doing on a manufacturing floor, right? How that translates into dollars and cents at the end of the month. So I think that hands down was probably the most influential person in my career and got me started. And then along the way, I've met several men who I think have been owners of organizations, been top salespeople of their organizations, brothers who've owned their print shops that have all kind of added to my confidence and to being able to just really, I knew what I was talking about. And I think that they kind of gave that to me and let me speak what I needed to speak, and it helped.
Awesome. To have that kind of support during all those stages of your career, certainly that's so good to hear. Some women in some ways, or even people, sometimes they're just left on their own. Women, male, whatever, they're left on their own to figure it out and to learn just by doing. But to have that support, to have that training, it really is great to see in all of those companies, the investment in your training, the investment in employees training, because that really is going to pay dividends for that company and for you as you move through.
Yes, it was definitely not without its naysayers, right? Or its challengers. So you would have one person saying, yes, you're ready for the next step in your career, but how do you prove to somebody that you're ready for the next step if you've never actually done what that next step is?
Yeah.
Right. And so there's definitely some challenges that I had to work through in terms of how those people saw me and what they thought my capabilities were versus the people my teammates and my mentors and coaches that definitely supported me and said, yep, let's just do it. Forget what they have to say. Let's do it anyways. Like, okay, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Now, with some of those naysayers and those challenges that you were presented with, was it because you were a woman, or was it because they thought you lacked the experience? Or was it both?
Yeah. So my opinion, and again, because it's not that unless they're here to speak for themselves, my opinion is that I was young, probably one of the younger ones that are in our organization in a management or director type of a role. And the role that I was going for was a director of operations role. I think the naysayers were kind of just, you're not ready. We don't know that you can do it. They really liked who was out there. And it just was kind of like, nah, sorry, you're not. it's just not right, right? All of these things aren't right. I wouldn't say that it was attributed to being a woman. I have had other incidents that were because of being a young female. And again, the youngest female in the organization when you're walking around the office, right, leads to a whole different set of circumstances. So in this case, trying to get to that next level in my career and chasing after what I was going for, I leaned hard on the people who were supportive, and kind of just picked up and left and went for it. Got it. So that was great. Kind of proved everybody wrong. So I thought I was very proud of myself in that moment and very grateful for the coaches and mentors that helped me in that journey specifically.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you were starting out, was it tough being a woman in probably a company that was mostly men?
Yes, it absolutely was tough. It was tough because your top sales leaders were men, your owners were men. The women in the organizations at the beginning of my career were typical of what you would think of as a female-oriented position, right? They were in HR, they were customer service, they were in accounting, those types of roles that I think, again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but again, most of the roles that I think are typical of being a female, and that's where we kind of fall or lean towards, or marketing, right? Those kind of things. But those big power hitter type roles, CEOs, CFOs, VPs of this, that, or the other thing, those are presidents. Those are roles that I did not see women in almost. I don't think in any organization that I was in, there was one female who was slated as the president of that organization. And she was there a year and that was it. So
That's
definitely not. And it's unfortunate because I think that women have a unique perspective and can definitely lend a different view and different opinion, right, on how to tackle maybe some of the more sensitive issues that every organization is going to face.
In your history, you've not had those women really in leadership roles for you to look toward. How important would it have been for even your younger self to have a woman as an owner in those C-suite roles? How important would that be to you?
That would have been very important. I think that would have changed. Certainly, being young, being a female, how you dress, what you look like, those are all challenges that we face as women that men don't have to worry about, right? They wear pants or shorts and usually a button down and a polo, and that's it.
They're done.
I don't think they even own that many button downs or polos, we wear skirts, dresses, V-neck shirts, and just anything, short sleeve, long sleeve, tank tops. I mean, the array of women's attire is very lengthy. So I think that's, just something else that as a female mentor or coach, I could have benefited from in terms of, look, this is a male dominated industry and you should, in theory, dress a particular way. I disagree with that statement. However, until the perception of women in those C-suite roles develops, right, where we're taking a little bit more seriously, or you start to see more of us in those roles, then I think that, the dress code will go to the wayside, so to speak, because you think of lawyers and their dress codes and things like that. But in the print industry, I walk around in a dress and everybody's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? What are you doing? Do you have an interview? Where are you going?
Which is
and that's
so
not
weird.
fair. I just wanted to look pretty today. And it's in a very professional dress, knee length, everything covered. Like, I don't understand.
And that's something that, men just don't think about whatsoever. But to have a woman to be able to help you navigate something as simple as your dress.
Yeah. Yes. And it's not something you would think of unless you're in a male dominated industry. If you go into your more typical female, I don't think female teachers, right, think about what they're going to wear every day.
They put clothes on and go.
Right. In the same sense that I would in this industry. So I think it sucks. But having a female role model in that regard would have been really helpful to know how to navigate even speech. I was involved in a program here called our Willow program, Women in Leadership at Orora. And one of my big takeaways from that session was, that women apologize. Men don't apologize when they walk into a meeting late. Women do. Right. So learning some of those really tiny nuances, I think that differentiate women from men in a corporate world and in a manufacturing world would have proved to, I think, have been helpful along those 17 years. I've learned them now, but it would have been helpful at least 5 years in.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that sometimes it's tough to learn as you go. But like you said, especially it's the small nuances of just things that maybe are part of our nature as a woman. Because I mean, women and men are very different in terms of their personalities, the way they approach situations. But women bring a lot to the workforce otherwise. What do you see as the benefits of having more women in some of those leadership roles? Or, what are the benefits? Are there certain characteristics or traits or things that women can do that really help to lend themselves to leadership roles?
I think that, again, very generally speaking, right? Not all women fall into these same categories, but generally speaking, I think that women are more empathetic, more compassionate, more understanding of issues that arise, right? Trying to balance a home life and a work life, trying to even make that decision, trying to juggle taking kids here, there, and everywhere and needing time off. And they may be more understanding of burnout too, because I think in the last, 2 years during the pandemic, burnout's very real. And it's unfortunate because I think that, men are just so strong and focused and just go, 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 go. Nobody can outwork them, so to speak, right? But it's different for a woman, I think, because you're trying to give 200% to all aspects of your life, and there isn't 200% to give. You still can only give 100%. So whether in this hour I give 100% to this, and then in the next hour I give 100% to raising children or tending to this, that, or the other thing, or a side hustle, or whatever it could be, there's only 100% in your day that you could give. And I think that women, being the multitaskers that they are and having to possibly juggle careers and kids and spouses and all these things, that they would be more understanding of that juggle, and being able to accommodate their peers, their coworkers, and being able to be problem solvers in that aspect.
Now, you touched on it already. A lot of women, they are working moms, they have a family, and they also have career aspirations. How do you, or how do other women, how do you make that choice? Do you make that choice? How, that's a tough question, I think, for everybody.
Yes. Anybody that knows me would know that I have personally struggled with that decision for quite some time. As I get older, I get concerned, like, am I missing out on something? But I really, really love my career. I love my career. I love being a career woman. I love being able to mentor and coach and go to the next, whatever the next adventure is, whatever that next level of, like, we have managers and directors and VPs and all these different things. And I don't settle. So I feel like for me, that struggle has been very real and very near and dear to my heart, because I grew up wanting to have children. I come from a big family. I have a niece and a nephew. And do I want my own? Absolutely. But man, do I have to give up my career to do that? I've waited this long. And so I think that struggle is absolutely real. And I feel for anybody who feels like they have to make that decision, but I still stand by the fact that if you're going to do something, you have to do it all the way. And I definitely kudos to those that are parents and are working moms, and all, to everybody, right? Your struggle is your own struggle, and trying to balance all those things. For me personally, I have serious concerns that I can't give 100% to a career and 100% to raising children and having a family. So for me, that's kind of where my line is, right? The balance, like, do I do it? Do I not do it? When you're in your 20s, maybe it's not as big of a deal. And then I'm in my 30s and I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to consider that. Biologically, I'm going to have to make a decision pretty quickly. I think it's an unfortunate struggle that there isn't already a balance out there, right? That exists. That's just, oh, you can do this and still do this, right? You forego a higher salary to work part-time. So you get less hours, but you get more time with your kids, but you don't have the same opportunity to make money, or in theory to be considered for promotions, because you're not, to everybody else, you're not putting in the same amount of effort, right? Or the same amount of hours as somebody, even though I can work after kids go to bed, right? From 9 to 11, or figure out, whatever it is that needs to be done, and you can make it work. So yeah, I think that's a definite struggle.
And I mean, it was probably more so, in the past that it was even worse. At least now there are some examples, especially for some women that are in those positions in the C-suite. They've proved that you can have a family, you can raise children and still run a company and still be in those powerful positions. And for you, or for other women that I think helps you to see, or for you to reach out, that it is possible. But again, you need to find your own life work balance and see what you're comfortable in.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
And
that,
I think, again, it depends on and I don't have the data in front of me, but I also believe, right, we're talking about the print industry.
yeah.
You're talking about manufacturing. You're talking about those types of areas of work that are not typical of work from home. They're not typical of 9 to 5 hours, right? They're,
Mhm.
like I talked about earlier, right? I've got East Coast, West Coast. I've 2 hours this way and 2 hours that way. So the days could be very long if I'm needed during that entire time. And I think that that is different than software companies or things that maybe are less manufacturing oriented, right? And more, or just the opposite of that, I guess. So I would love to talk to some of those women that are in those C-suite positions, be like, okay, how many nannies do you have? Because I feel like I would need at least 2 to deal, and then how many kids do you have? And, all those kind of questions. I absolutely believe it can be done, but it is a heck of a lot of work.
It's the support systems, you need to, what are the support systems behind that powerful woman,
Yes, absolutely.
to allow
Yeah,
her to do
that's
that.
right. Because you have to have a good team at work. You have to have a good team at home. You have to have a good team. I mean, everything from your kids' teachers to in-laws and your own siblings and just
Yeah.
anybody that you can't, the kid next door who's going to babysit when work calls you and you have an emergency.
Mhm.
Those are definitely things to consider before kind of jumping in. So the struggle is real.
Yeah. And I know in speaking with some other women, it's a lot of them mention it's also that dealing with the guilt in a way, because you can't necessarily be there for everything. And, you have to kind of resign yourself to that, because you
Yeah.
might not be there. When you're there 100%, but when you're at work, you have to be there 100%. So,
Yes.
that's what they say, there's stuff that I know I'm missing, but that's when you try to figure out, is that worth it?
Right.
And
Yeah.
making that
And
decision.
that is such a tricky question, because
Yeah.
you could have the best support system and still miss first steps and first words and all those monumental moments, right? Or you'll have to miss orchestra concerts and swim meets and, all these other things that, award ceremonies and stuff, because, you have work as well. So it's unfortunate that we have to make that decision. And it's unfortunate too that you have to put that on a woman, so to speak,
Mhm.
right? Versus men. Because I feel like men, they miss all that stuff too. And maybe they're just okay with it. Maybe we're conditioned to think that they're more compartmentalized than we are.
Mhm.
And that we just want, for me, I just want all of it. So the struggle for me personally is like, no, I want 100% kids and I want 100% career. And I haven't been able to pull the trigger on the kid thing yet. So I'm still 100% career for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, and you said it's a difficult decision for everybody to make, and it's a personal decision for everybody, because everyone has different circumstances and different career aspirations and even family aspirations and what they want personally. So it's something, like you said, that it's a hard juggle to do, to say the least.
Yes, it is.
Now, looking ahead and looking at the print industry as a whole, do you think, or how do you think would be some of the better ways or some of the best ways that the industry can, or even individual print companies can look to get women, or even honestly at this point, anybody, because the print industry is in desperate need for good people to come into it. How do we get more people interested in the printing industry?
Hmm. I think that's also a tricky one, because I think that getting women interested, in my opinion, in manufacturing and print, and I keep referencing manufacturing because I just feel like that's, we always said it was the concrete versus the carpet, right? It's a concrete world
Yeah.
for sure. And so, I would love to see women promoted from within. And then backfilled with other women, right? Or the younger generations where they don't even understand what print is, right? Point of purchase, point of sale. You walk into the Walmarts and the Targets and these big things are hanging everywhere from the ceilings. We all see them, right? But you don't really know where they come from.
Yep.
And that was, definitely eye-opening when I started in the industry. And I started in a traditional female accounting clerk type of a role, right? And then migrated into operations and just fell into it. But I think that for our industry to stay alive and to stay relevant and to catch the eye, we definitely need to be able to offer that work from home balance for the younger generations, because I say that because obviously COVID has taught us that we can do so much, right? From just a computer. I mean, sitting at my kitchen table, I am moving work across the country all day long. And so I think that's just something different that has been eye-opening and has been accepted more than what it was even 5 or 10 years ago. So I think getting those younger generations interested in what we do and how we do it, I think is going to be important. And getting women into non-traditional female-oriented roles, I think will also be interesting. And it's not for everybody, but I'm not your typical well-organized female either. Everything's scatterbrained. I post-it notes everywhere.
Post-it notes are my favorite organizational system, so I have no problem with that.
Yeah, so it works for me. My boss shakes her head at me all the time. She's just, Ashley, we need things like in a document. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's on the wall. I got it. I know exactly where everything is. So I think that it just takes, different characteristics to have women in the operational roles. But I was told several times, you're not ready, or you're not the type of person that we're looking for. And I didn't really push it, but I kind of knew what they meant in terms of, okay, fine. And, as we bring new hires on to replace people, I think that it should just be, we should just be a little bit more open to, I think the possibilities are out there. And maybe there aren't women applying for these types of positions, right? Those C-suite positions. And if they aren't, then shame on us as other females that we've created that environment for ourselves. And we definitely need to be more inclusive and more collaborative and have more conversations about those nuances that, present themselves in the workplace when you're dealing with everybody else.
Mm-hmm. So then the question is, where do those conversations start to get women interested? Some people, it's school age, it's elementary, is that really where we need to start really talking about people and getting people interested and women interested in printing, and that knowing that there's a career path that they can actually take?
Yes, I definitely would agree that, school age, career days, colleges that offer that. I think we've partnered with some here locally, local, career technical type colleges to say, hey, this is what we offer. Like, see if we can, what we don't offer is really like internship programs or anything that's more specific to trying to get people in and then let them decide, right? Because I can tell you, if you're in the print industry, you either got here by accident or you were brought in by family. Because, you grew up with it or you tripped and fell into it and then you never left. So I think that getting people interested in just even understanding what it is absolutely starts at the school age. We've seen a big push for more vocational, type of work, right? The masonry and woodworking and, building homes and things like that have exploded that we just don't, even truck drivers. I mean, I read an article of 200-300 truck drivers people are hiring. Yeah. And it's those types of things that maybe also alongside us in print that wasn't talked about on career day. It's the more typical, what do you want to be when you grow up? I tell, my niece and my nephew, what do you want to be? My nephew said he wants to be a dirt bike rider, but he wants to own his own dirt bike track. I'm like, okay, now we're talking business. I can get on board with that. So those types of things, I think, just to broaden their horizons as young as you can, and definitely keep print at the forefront of career day, basically, for everybody, because it's not going away. Yeah. I know that marketing, digital billboards and all that kind of stuff, they're out there, but people want to shop and people want to be out there, and all those pretty things that they see are things that we've produced.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that we've seen lately is online, Google, Apple, privacy is becoming much more and more important. So brands can't track people online anymore to target ads. So how else are they going to get in front of these people except with signage and window displays? It's something that, I've mentioned before in other interviews, is like, it's something that they can't turn off. And it's
go
just
for a walk around the store and you'll see it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really cool to say, hey, I did that. Hey, I did that. Hey, I did that. I love that part about my job for sure. And I tell everybody that I'm with, like, oh, by the way, we printed this. And I'm, the weird print person that's over there, like touching fabric, like, I wonder what this is. And I'm like poking at flicking stuff and poking at things. And, like, oh, I wonder how they put that together.
Oh yeah. Me too. Museum exhibits. And I'm like, I can see the seam on that. They didn't really do a good job with that one.
Yeah.
But
I'm like, that fabric's not pulled tight enough. We need to do better on that one. Like, I think one of these lights is broken. This is supposed to be backlit.
But yeah, it's interesting, like you say, you either fall into it or you come into it because your family was in it. But for those who fall into it, most of the time you never get out. For good or bad,
No, and it's a really unique industry that it's just different, right? There's so many different avenues that you could go. You could be on, the strategy side, like, any business, or you can be on the marketing side, or you can be on the PR side, or you could be on the floor, right? Manufacturing, doing the day-to-day work of getting these jobs out on time and correctly, and, all that kind of stuff. And you could be in customer service, you'd be in sales, you could be an account manager. I mean, the roles are endless. I think that you can go in different directions within the same industry and not really make too much of a left turn. And I think that that's something that we take for granted because we're in the industry, but it's something that I think should go along with our advertising, for our careers and opportunities to try to get other people involved and see what we do.
Exactly. So my final question to you is, if you were to give advice to a younger you that was just starting out in the industry, what would you tell yourself?
Ooh. You're never going to leave the industry, and you better buckle up and get ready. Because don't think if I thought I was going to be X, Y, and Z when I grew up, I was not going to be X, Y, and Z. You are going to be in print. And knowing kind of where my path has taken me these last 17 years, I would tell myself that you have to have a thick skin. Don't take it personally. Be aware of your surroundings and what you have to say and how you say it. Because I think that I could have possibly been taken more seriously when I was younger. It was hard, obviously, because I was young. They just see you as this young kid. You don't know what you don't know. And that's fair. I didn't know what I didn't know. But after 4 acquisitions and 10 years of print experience, I felt like I was ready. And so, being creative in how you problem solve, not being afraid to voice, it's not really your opinion, but to voice a suggestion for change. I would also have said, don't be afraid to lead the change yourself. Because there are not going to be many people, again, I had a handful, but not many that I leaned on to say, yeah, help take me here. It was really, this is what I wanted, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less than yes. And so that's my advice to myself, like, girl, you better get it together, buckle up and be ready for that ride.
And quite a ride that it's been.
Yes. It has, yes. And it's not stopping anytime soon. So I look forward to what else I'm able to do in the industry and in this organization. And, even after this conversation, I may rethink some things that I had in the works and, try to reach out to more, because I think even myself, right, I'm doing a disservice by not reaching out to other women, young leaders, anybody that needs coaching or mentoring.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Ashley, it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you today and learning about you and your views. And we talked about a lot today. So
we definitely covered a lot. So thank you for taking the time. We definitely accomplished a lot. We went in a lot of different directions. So I'm glad I was able to share and contribute.
Awesome. Ashley, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Denise.